Live from the mist-enshrouded mountaintop fortress that is X and Y Communications headquarters, you're listening to the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. And now, here's your host, Scott McKay.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Big Show. My name is Scott McKay.
And I'm Emily McKay.
And today we're going to discuss a topic, I don't know, we've talked about it before briefly on both X and Y on the Fly and the Mountaintop. But I think this is the first time you and I have ever taken on the idea of why younger women often prefer older men as a full and complete topic, as the central topic of the show.
That's going to be a really fun topic. I guess I'll have to reveal all my secrets.
Yeah, well, you sort of went after an older guy. I mean, it's 5 years an older guy. It would be if you were 18.
Oh, yes.
Maybe not when you were 34.
No.
Well, you know, maybe that's a great place to start here. What does it mean to prefer an older guy? I mean, if you're a sophomore in high school and you're dating a junior, you're dating an older guy. But I mean, we're, grown-ass adults here.
Right. Or if you're 30 years old and you're dating someone who's 45, that's 15 years difference, but doesn't feel that much of a difference.
It doesn't? 15 years?
Well, when you're talking about in your 30s and 40s compared to when you're 20 and dating someone who's 35.
Well, there's a yardstick rule here. Maybe we should throw that on the table first, right? That's half your age plus 7, right?
Yeah.
Is typically the quote-unquote acceptable age that an older guy can date if she's a younger woman. For example, if you're 40, then half your age is 20, add 7 to it, and you shouldn't go any younger than, say, 27. Do you think there's anything to that?
Well, there could be, but I think there's a lot of different things to consider when you're dating a younger woman, or if a woman who's younger dating an older guy.
Well, clearly. And that's what we're going to talk about today, which is why.
Let's dig into it.
Well, but before we do that, I don't think we've actually answered the first question here, which is what counts as dating someone younger? I mean, when I was 38, 39, I looked a lot younger than I was. I still had a very boyish countenance, right? So I was dating, say, 27-year-olds and going to social events with them, and people thought we were the same age. But right. I was 12 years older. She was clearly dating an older guy. And I mean, on the other hand, a lot of times a guy who's 40 years old will go, hey, I'm dating a 24-year-old, and people are picturing this trophy model by his side, and they meet her, and she looks 40. Even though she's 24 and acts 50. So things aren't always what they seem. So maybe the best place to start here would be by, expressing that there are no predictable patterns here, really. Some people seem younger and they're dating someone who actually is a lot younger than they are, who seems older, and vice versa. And our stereotypes, or at least our first impressions of what we're imagining, might go right out the window.
Well, not just in looks, but in physicality. For example, there's some people who are in their 50s who are extremely athletic, and people in their 20s that can barely, go 3 blocks without, huffing and puffing.
Yeah, well, and also people in their 30s can either look and seem extremely youthful and energetic and vivacious, or they could seem like they've been ridden hard and put away wet and just finished already, and they're only like 35. Strange age group.
So age can be a perception.
Well, they say age is just a number, baby.
I hope so.
Well, there's a lot going on here, and I think that's an important place to start, is that when we're talking about someone younger dating someone older, the perception probably, or at least might not be exactly what you think it is. You and I have been on these trips overseas where we see some slimy 70-year-old guy with some 22-year-old prostitute, and clearly that's what's up. But that isn't necessarily what's going on if someone younger is dating someone older. I mean, a lot of younger guys are dating older women because of the sexual experience, or maybe the women aren't so flighty. But I tell you what, yourself included, I'm in good company here. A lot of women are looking really, really good and having lots of energy and being very youthful at a more advanced age than they did, say, 30, 40 years ago.
Yes, things have really changed over the years. People are more active, they're living longer, and they're dating well into their older years.
Yeah, we cringed at that new ad for it's not Our Time, but it's another similar dating site for people over 50.
Yes. And I'm like, wait, we're not old.
I know exactly. But it seemed like everybody on this particular commercial was a lot older than we are.
Yes. And that's not a bad thing.
Well, I guess so, but I mean, I don't know who they're trying to attract. I mean, especially if the 50-year-old guys are going to want the 28-year-old women anyway.
Or if a woman wants an older guy, that would be the place to be.
Yeah, but you still have to be over 50. Maybe that's not such a good business model after all. I mean, I haven't seen a whole lot of our time commercials lately.
No. And imagine a woman who wants an older guy. How is she supposed to find him if she's not allowed on the site?
Well, the guys who want a younger woman, probably just like everybody else who's out there doing online dating, aren't on that site. They're somewhere else trying to find the younger women, right?
Right. So that is a drawback.
Yeah, a lot of them are like sugar daddy sites and arrangement sites. Like, I'll give you, a good time and you give me some money. But, that attitude to me just seems like it's going to be star-crossed from the get-go.
I know, because their trust isn't there, because the woman's going to think that he's going to want sex, and he's going to think she only wants him for his money. And sometimes they just simply like each other, but it's kind of hard to tell that.
Yeah, but, in the case of these sugar daddy, sugar baby sites, where the arrangements go on, we've had people call us, men and women, and they're going, well, I met this person on the sugar daddy site, and it really didn't turn out all that well. And we're like, well, surprise, surprise, because that's not going to be a relationship built on any kind of firm foundation. It's literally going to be a transaction.
Right. Or if nothing else, a misunderstanding.
Right. So let's assume, moving into the meat and potatoes of what we're talking about tonight, that two people meet and they're there for the right reasons, even though there might be, what's commonly known as an age gap. What are some good, solid reasons why two people of two different ages might get together?
Well, I think one is they have a lot in common. For example, they are both very vivacious and full of life and energy, and they get along great because of that. So they tend to be very active. They're going and running and doing, where someone else, another couple, might be more of, let's sit down and let's have wine, let's watch a movie. They just get each other.
Yeah, and they could be of different ages as well. A woman may be, quote unquote, an old soul and have a guy who gets her, but he's a little older.
Right. And he could be an older guy, but he's young at heart. After all, the expression guys don't grow up. They're a lot of fun. Well,
hold on a second. I think you just basically nailed down one of the big reasons why younger women do go after older men. Is because they have grown up. I mean, say a 25, 28-year-old woman, she's dating a bunch of guys who don't know how to treat her. They're very selfish. They don't have any ambition. They don't have any wisdom. They don't make very good decisions yet, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, they may be good looking and healthy, but the woman's just rolling her eyes at all the stupidity that's coming out of this guy's mouth, and he doesn't know how to have sex. And he's generally just not carrying the mindset of a life well lived so far, like a man of wisdom and maturity would possess. So a lot of women just say no to immature guys and guys who don't make good decisions. And where do they find the men who actually are like that? Well, there are guys who are, over 30, maybe over 35, even over 40, right?
Correct. They've, lived life. They've finally come up along the ranks in their business and in their employment. So they are, usually established financially, as well as, like you said, they've matured. And so they're less flaky and they're more reliable and dependable.
Right. And they're looking for a woman who isn't jaded and angry at men and maybe still young and playful. And that's why he would go after the younger woman. It isn't always necessarily because they want a little sex toy. A lot of times it is.
Well, that would make sense. A woman who is jaded isn't a lot of fun. And
no.
Let's face it, the more years that we have behind us, the more bad experiences that we've had. And, it's easy to get jaded in this day and age.
Yeah, nobody gets out of this alive. And we've talked to couple after couple who are 35, 40 years old and expecting the person they've just met not to have any skeletons in their closet.
Impossible.
Is it going to happen, Captain?
No. Everybody has it. And whoever says they don't isn't being honest.
Right, exactly. So here we have this young woman. She's vivacious. She's full of life. She probably wants to have kids. So a lot of times when these guys come to me and, they've, as harsh as this sounds, gotten out of a divorce with a woman they've been married to for 20, 25 years, and they want to, quote unquote, trade her in on a younger model, they're not taking into consideration any needs other than their own often. Hey, you know what? She's hot. She's sweet. Hey, you know what? I got some money, she doesn't have to work. But you know what? She's going to want babies, isn't she, Emily?
Oh, yes. And that's an interesting concept or interesting topic all in itself, because she, like you said, she's going to want kids, even if she doesn't want them right now. At some point, she may change her mind because her clock is going to start ticking. And then she's like, well, you've had your kids. They're all grown. It's my turn to have kids. Then what?
Well, then the guy says, I can talk her out of it.
But that's so selfish, because that's not considering her. Let's face it, children are the extension of us. And so that would be so selfish to rob somebody of that opportunity of joy and contentment that comes with having children.
Well, you know, we just had a guest on the mountaintop who met a wonderful woman who is younger than he is. And for all the good reasons, they got together and they adore each other, but she wanted another child. So at age 57, he became a father again because she wanted a child.
That's not uncommon. That happens more and more nowadays.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And sometimes it's more fun the second time around because we've had the practice.
Well, I'll tell you what, you know, I thought I was, you know, for lack of a better way to put it, an old dad because Sarah was born when I was 45. This guy is my age now with a newborn. And I looked him in the eye over video and said, dude, I couldn't do it. He goes, well, yeah, exactly. He said, yeah, you probably could. If you had a new woman in your life and that's what she wanted, you could make it happen. I said, well, I really appreciate that you two are looking out for each other's needs. And he was like, yeah, you know, we're a team. We're doing it right. And, you know, that kind of was heartwarming to me.
Yeah, sometimes we're willing to do that a second time around.
Yeah, exactly. But anytime someone's getting into any kind of relationship, Emily, with purely selfish motives, as if that doesn't happen nowadays, right? It seems like everybody's
never
coming up with only purely selfish motives to get in any kind of relationship. This person's going to do this for me, et cetera, et cetera. All these people complaining that the other person in the relationship is such a narcissist, you know?
But the funny thing is he may think he'll talk her out of having babies, and she's thinking she's going to talk him into having babies.
Exactly. Either way, someone's trying to get what they want at the emotional or even lifestyle expense of someone else. So maybe it's worth talking about here that you have to go the extra mile if you're dating someone who's different in age from you to make sure you're literally on the same page. Because I'll tell you one thing, you're not going to be on the same page culturally.
No.
I mean, you are 5 years younger than me, and I can't believe the things from the 70s and 80s you have no recollection of.
I know that.
Never knew
5
about.
years make a difference.
5 years. A mere 5 years. I've heard guys who are married to women 3 years younger than they are who say the same thing. It's like, oh, she's never heard of this. She's never heard of that. I'm like, that's really weird.
That's because their consciousness starts at a different time period.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like everything that happened before the year we were born is ancient. And everything that's happened since we were alive is, kind of modern.
Well, even you can take that one step further. Anything that started from the time you were 5 years old and before that, you have no recollection of anyway.
Yeah. So there's that. And I'm sure that contributes to exactly the issue we're talking about right here.
Exactly.
I remember seeing things on TV because, after all, kids watch a lot of TV from when I was like 6 or 7 and you were 1 or 2.
Right. So I have no way of remembering that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I'm like, who? What? Never heard of that.
So imagine how much this gets exacerbated when the people are 20 years apart. I mean, you're from a different planet at that point. I mean, that's like the difference between what my parents know about and what I don't. And I can tell you from playing Trivial Pursuit with them, back when that came out, like in the 80s, every time the pink pies would come up, which were arts and entertainment, they would just smoke us, and they would know everything. They would know every answer to everybody who was the lead on every TV show or movie or who sang what song. And we, the siblings, were just like, I got nothing.
That makes that game not fun.
No, it wasn't. I mean, I was just hoping not to get pink.
Well, another thing I was thinking about when it comes to the differences in age, especially when you're talking about 20 years, 15 years apart, as you grow older together, health issues start to come up.
You know what else came up just now while you were thinking about that? A bunch of people 35 years old listening to the show going, what the hell's Trivial Pursuit? Well, see, at least you're of the milieu with me that you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
But health issues, my goodness, yeah. What about the woman who thinks this guy is so suave and so charming, like the most interesting man in the world from the Dos Equis commercials, and she's taking care of a guy and changing his diapers and giving him a bath
20 years from now.
20 years from now when she's 40 and
Right.
widowed by the time she's 45 and she's out there again.
Exactly.
Did she think about that? I mean, if she counted the cost, great. But I think a lot of times women especially kind of live in the moment, don't they, Emily?
Well, I know of a very recent divorce that happened between a couple for that very reason. You know, she somehow woke up and realized, wait, I didn't sign up for this. Not realizing she signed up for this.
Well, exactly. She signed up for the whole thing.
Yeah, but he got sick and he had back issues and having to go through physical therapy and all kinds of health issues. They're about 20 years apart, and she's 40-something years old.
And now he's 60-something years old.
Right, and so she's like, I'm out of here.
Well, that isn't exactly for richer or poorer sickness and health.
No, but when there's that much of an age difference, that's something to consider, that at such a young age, you're going to be doing the things that older people do as you approach those years.
Now, as a caveat, there are probably people listening to this who know our story, and we didn't exactly stick with our spouses through, for better or worse, in sickness and in health. But, you know, at least in my case, and in yours too, what happened was that mental illness was so profound that it ruined our marriages,
Correct.
with or without us.
That
Right.
had nothing to do with us. It's
Yeah,
different.
right. So if you're actually getting into a marriage, realizing, hey, you know what, this person is 20 years older than me, and he's a guy, right? And guys die younger than women anyway,
Right.
you know, which sucks. Typically, at least, right? And you're right now 38 and he's 58. You know, by the time he's 78, he's not going to be who he is right now. And at age 58, you could be vibrant and playing tennis twice a day.
Something to consider.
You got to at least think about it, right?
That's right.
But I don't think that's why younger women go after older guys.
No, it's mostly because they're stable and they're mature. And, you know, life is so much better when you're not dealing with a child.
Well, not dealing with their children and the baby mamas.
Well,
although,
there's
you know,
that.
Anything could happen. You know, we live in a different world nowadays. But where I'm going with this, Emily, is I don't think any younger woman goes out with an older man or gets in a relationship or even married to an older man because he's old. It's like, ooh, I just love gray hair. You know, I just love a ball sack that hangs down about 12 inches below his knees. I love all that stuff. Give me this old guy. They don't date the guy because he's old.
They date him because he's charming.
They date him because of who he is, not what he looks like.
Right.
Right. So what I always tell men, Emily, when they're still 28 or 30 or even 22, 25 is if you could figure out why women your age go out with the older guys and become that guy, all these women would love you. They would choose you. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Why not? Because then you got the best of both worlds. You have a younger guy and you have a guy who's financially set, who has his emotional baggage under control, who doesn't have baby mamas and baby dramas, and he doesn't have all kinds of problems that come with older guys sometimes. There's a lot of advantages to date a younger guy who is mature.
Now, I will say it may be unreasonable. It is unreasonable to expect a 23-year-old guy to have the career success already raked into the barn that a guy who's 45 or 50 might have. Okay? But he can be all about compiling wisdom, slowing down, learning how to respect women, not being so sexually needy, right, and pushy, make better decisions, be more intentional about that. He can start building that mindset that makes a woman feel safe, because that's what this is really all about, isn't it, Emily? Older men have this way of making younger women feel safe and protected, and that's what's irresistible. And when younger men figure out how to stop being knuckleheads and make women feel emotionally safe and physically safe, then a woman might even be able to credit this guy's ambition and his success financially, that stability you're talking about, as a potential future, and still fall in love with him anyway.
Well, that's right, because you take a guy who has ambition, who has a good head on his shoulders, and because of those things, he's able to accomplish a lot. And when he has all that handled, he feels as if he's the type of person that can handle a relationship. And so we feel safe and secure with him. You know, he can take us out and he has things under control. It's just suave and sophisticated and a lot of fun.
Yeah, at the same time. Now, being suave and sophisticated and a whole lot of fun is very important.
Yes.
Okay. For the record, a lot of the guys who graduate from military academies, you know, like West Point or Annapolis, come out as this kind of guy. And the strange dichotomy there is they also have had very few women to date at their respective institutions while they're in school and don't have a whole lot of confidence that these younger women are going to adore them like they would an older guy. And a lot of times when I meet those guys and talk to them and even coach them, that's the first thing that I want to impress upon them is that women are going to adore you because of the man you've become through this process. Because those guys are making better decisions. They're calmer, cooler, more collected. They're doing a lot of these things that older men do because it's been trained into them already. And they just simply need to go out and see the effect that has on women. You know what I mean?
Well, it's very sexually alluring to find a guy like that. Because men who haven't quite figured out how to handle things under pressure and they freak out and then a woman has to come and rescue him is not something that makes us feel warm and fuzzy.
No, then you have to be his mommy instead of his lover, and that turns off the sexual attraction factor.
Oh, instantly. I mean, there's nothing that stops the attraction faster than that. We want a guy who has grace under pressure. In other words, the house is on fire or this tragic situation is going on, but you know what? No problem, dear. I got it. You just relax. This is going to be okay.
And not from a perspective of, hey, y'all watch this, but with some measure about him, you know, some calculation to his actions.
Right. And unlike a young, you know, they always say young and dumb, right? Doing things that put yourself or others in danger, both either financially or physically, it's unnerving.
It doesn't make the woman feel safe. It does the opposite.
Exactly. It makes us want to run because it's like, why? Why do this to us?
Now, on the other hand, Emily, this has to be said. I get some people who come to me who, male or female, they're in their 40s or their 50s, and they have not grown up. They still make bad decisions. They still have no direction in life. The woman may have gotten jaded, or she may still be a little girl in there who's still very selfish. And in her mind, she's like Veruca Salt. Buy me this. Do this for me. Take care of me. And she's wanting to be a damsel in distress when, you know, men are over that. They want a partner. They want someone who's in life to win life with them rather than someone who they have to babysit. Otherwise, they would go and date a younger woman, right?
Right. One who's 21, barely able to drink.
Right. If I want to babysit, you know, I'll deal with a younger woman and have that younger, tighter, you know, piece of ass to go out and date that men are so criticized for wanting. Right? But what happens is I often get these guys who have never had success with women in their entire lives. And now that they're 45, 50, and they maybe were afraid to ask women out, or they had this jaded outlook on women in general, or something that kept them from being successful with women in the past. Now they decide they want to get over it. But they don't really want to do anything about it. They just want the right line or the right easy button so they can go get a 21-year-old woman or, God forbid, an 18-year-old girl, right? And that's what she is, when they're 50, to make up for lost time or something. And that is really suspect because if you've never been attractive to 18, 20-year-old women when you were 18 or 20, and nothing has changed, and you haven't built these life skills and these habits and this maturity that makes you the kind of guy who's attractive to a younger woman, you can't just clap your hands and go be attractive to younger women because you're older. And it kind of harks back to what we said. Younger women just don't want older, more wrinkled, sickly guys. That's not what they want.
They want a guy with the whole package. So it's not about her age or about his age. It's about what he represents.
Yeah. And they also don't want an older guy who tries to act like a younger guy.
No.
That's not what happens. And I've seen that before too, and it's pretty scary.
Yeah, not genuine in its short term.
Right. And it's just beside the point, because if a woman wanted a guy who acts like a younger guy, wearing younger guy clothes and saying younger guy words and doing younger guy irresponsible, like you said, young, dumb, and full of cum things. Although I don't know if he's full of cum anymore. He's just young and he's just old and dumb at that point, right? That's a bad combination. He's just barking up the wrong tree when it comes to, well, really attracting any kind of woman at all, let alone a younger one.
Well, understanding what women really want, especially in an older guy, would be important.
Yeah, so you're talking older guys who don't understand what younger women are looking for, trying to act younger, and that's kind of the opposite situation of a guy who's younger, figuring out why older men get younger women, which we've covered pretty good. And then, obviously, they're going to get the opposite results for having that opposite mindset.
Right. And for the guys who are older, wanting to, go out there and date, realize that you may already have a lot handled.
Now, I'm about to throw a wrench in the works, okay? Kind of to close out this podcast episode with a little fun twist, okay? We talk to woman after woman who's 50 or 60, and they do not want to date men their own age anymore. The trend, like I said, I'm throwing a wrench in the works here, right? The trend is very quickly becoming older women wanting younger men, 15 years younger than they are, because these women 60, 70 years old are saying, men my age are old, fat, sick. They're a stick in the mud. They're no fun. I want a guy who's going to help me live these sunset years of my life. Now, that may or may not be unreasonable, but I also know that a lot of guys, who are 22, 23 are attracted to the MILF situation too. But a lot of times that's because those women are a lot more sexually available and sexually gifted.
Right.
Right. What say you about these situations where younger men are dating older women? I mean, is it reasonable for the older woman to expect to get a 40-year-old guy when she's 60 because all the guys her own age are sick? Or does she just need to find someone who's more like her and agrees with her? And what about the younger guys going after the MILFs? What's up with all of that?
Well, I think it goes back to what we said when we first started this podcast. Age is relative. So, for example, she may be, let's say, 60 or 70, but she looks much younger. She acts much younger. She internally is a younger person.
Not to be confused with dating your relatives.
But, an older guy, a younger guy may be feeling, he's an old soul and he tends to get somebody who understands someone who's older. And so they get along great together. So there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah,
we've met couples who we find out weeks or months later are actually 10 years apart, the woman being older, and we thought they were around the same age.
Right.
It can happen. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, there's TV sitcoms that do that.
Yeah, and a lot of times because it's comedy, it's meant to be ironic comedy.
But they look the same age and they're like 20 years apart.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Like they just cast people who look good together, and then when you go read the bios of the actors and actresses, you realize that they're hugely different in age. Good Times was like that.
Jeffersons.
Was that the case too?
Yes.
Yeah, Esther Roll was a good 20 years older than the man she was opposite of in that show.
Exactly.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. And if you're new to the show, please know that if you're a guy, you can go listen to the Mountaintop podcast, which is specifically for men. Every 10th episode of the Mountaintop podcast features Emily and I doing this show together, and that show is also put onto the X and Y on the Fly feed, which you may be listening to right now. And hey, if you're a lady and want to be a fly on the wall listening to the show for men, hey, we won't be mad at you. Come join. Come listen to what men are talking about and what men are feeling in terms of y'all ladies. And we have nothing to hide. We love you. Lots of good information. Yes, definitely. And if you're not on our mailing list, please go to either scotandemily.com/podcast or mountaintoppodcast.com and get on our mailing list. Remember, Scott only has one T and Emily only has one M and one L and one Y. And only one me. And only one you. Oh boy, we're really silly. That's another thing you're going to figure out about us. And while you're at either of the websites, scottandemily.com/podcast or mountaintoppodcast.com, please get on our calendar and talk to us for free for 25 or 30 minutes about what you got going on. That helps us keep our finger on the pulse of the kind of topics we should be talking to you about. And if you would like to put a plan together to be better in the relationship you're in currently, or to get that right relationship with a significant other who may be 15 years younger or older than you, we don't care. We'll be there to help you plan that out too. It's all there for you at scottandemily.com/podcast or mountaintoppodcast.com. And until we talk to you again, my name is Scott McKay.
And I'm Emily McKay.
And we're from X&Y Communications in San Antonio, Texas. Until the next show, be good out there.
And have fun.
The Mountaintop Podcast is produced by X&Y Communications. All rights reserved worldwide. Be sure to visit www.mountaintoppodcast.com for show notes. And while you're there, sign up for the free X&Y Communications newsletter for men. This is Ed Roy Odom speaking for the Mountaintop Podcast.